Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
We are super excited for our guest today. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Scott, I'm happy to introduce to you Shawn Finnegan. He is an Orem, Utah native who also studied right here in Logan at Utah State University. He studied marketing. Probably his best accolades is he's a father, he's a husband, and for those that might be in the know, he's a girl dad. He's also an entrepreneur. This guy is sharp. He's on top of everything. I mean, he helped establish what's called the Tax Hive with Kevin O'Leary. I know a lot of people out there are going to know that name. Essentially, it's a business accelerator, business growth program, and particularly helping you to be the best at contributing the least amount of taxes legally. Shawn also loves pretty much anything that has to do with bikes. So welcome to the podcast, Shawn. We're happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. And I've gotten to meet most of your family, and I'm just impressed with you and your whole family and what you're doing in this podcast. I've been watching some episodes, and you're pumping out incredible content for people. I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, and there's not a lot of places they can go down the hall to get great access to great content. I think you guys your interviews are so good with really good, takeaway executable items in your content. So I think you guys doing a great work.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you. Hopefully everybody else out there that heard that would like and subscribe to the podcast as a result of your endorsement there. That's great. Tell us a little bit more about you. You have 3 daughters, is that right?
3 daughters.
3 daughters. I wasn't quite sure. I saw a picture of your family. Your wife looks really young, dude. How much younger than you?
She does.
I was like,
does.
There's 3 daughters here, is there 4 here? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, exactly. I get that on a regular basis. Yeah. So it's great.
Big age difference or not much?
No, she's actually a year older. So She just happens to look so young. Yeah. They confuse my daughters with my wife, which she absolutely loves that compliment when someone confuses, and is this your daughters or your sisters? Basically, she loves when anyone says that to her.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you can tell her I said that. I have 6 myself, and I lived outside Utah and only could make boys. And then I moved to Utah here to Logan, and I could only make girls. So maybe there is something in the water, man, that it's only does girls. And Scott here, his wife is expecting his first, and it will be a girl here in the next couple of days, right?
Next 24 hours. She gets induced tomorrow.
Oh boy.
Welcome aboard to the girl daddy. Good girl daddy, man. It's awesome. Fantastic.
That's right.
So tell us, Shawn, how is it that you graduate in marketing from Utah State and you wind back up down in Orem area doing taxes? Just tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so I was raised, as you mentioned, Orem. My mom, my dad was actually a bookstore manager at BYU for 40 years. Stayed at the same job for 40 years, knew how much he was making down to the penny for 40 years, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And so we had 5 children in our family. And so it's obviously very difficult to raise 5 kids with a bookstore manager, kind of pay. So my mom was the original side hustle lady that was a marketing extrovert. You picture my dad as like the most even keel bookstore guy. And then my mom is just a butt kicker. We started multiple businesses together. She had a preschool. I sold stuff. I literally would go down and sell my neighbors on a regular basis. I'd buy, pencils for 5 cents and sell them to my neighbors for 25 cents. And I wasn't going to go to my parents and ask for an allowance. So I had to go earn it by talking to my neighbors and selling on the playground. And that's how I really kind of gained my appreciation from really my mom and those early years of being raised here.
And so what got you interested, again, from marketing to taxes is a little bit of a leap. How did that happen?
Yeah. I went to Utah State and I loved it up there. That was such a great college, but I didn't like my accounting classes. And I think it's actually, as an entrepreneur, you start with the problems. And we just know I'm an entrepreneur and I know the problems firsthand about what we don't like to talk about in taxes, which I didn't like my accounting classes. I love sales and marketing. So most entrepreneurs, a lot of people are like that, where they just want to put all that stuff off until, the game's over, the buzzer's sounded, and then they end up getting hit with a tax bill. And so that was the problem that we wanted to solve. And so coming out of college and really building a tax business wasn't in the cards, but that's where we really started from. And then we put the sales and marketing behind that and built our business.
And how is it that you became partners with Kevin O'Leary? Were you on Shark Tank or what happened?
Yeah, so I had a relationship with Kevin. We've known him for years. We used to book him on entrepreneur stages that we did, live event stages, and Kevin spoke for us. So I traveled around with Kevin, and maybe you've seen him speak maybe 50 times. And so I've spent a lot of time with Kevin. And COVID kicks in. There's no live events going on. We make this transition, and so I literally shoot Kevin a text one day, and I said, "Hey, we have a business we want to present to you," because we're like, okay, what brand can we align with? And I invite entrepreneurs to consider, hey, really aligning with a brand that has a great reach. I mean, it will multiply your business. Either affiliate deals or a brand deal or something is an incredible way to scale. So we're like, hey, what is a great brand out there that sees millions of people on a show, who's a household name? And that's our friend Kevin O'Leary. So I sent him a text and I said, hey, we have a business we want to present to you. And he said, great, I'm going to be in Arizona. Why don't you come down and we'll do dinner and you can present this business to me? And that's really kind of how it happened. And if you watch Shark Tank, you know that the numbers, Kevin specifically says, if you don't know your numbers, you're dead to me. I mean, he's really hard on people that don't know numbers. So we all studied our numbers. I mean, it was hours because a lot's riding on this thing. You have employees. We have a lot of people here that are relying on us getting a great alignment with the Kevin. So you study the numbers and them inside. I knew every line chart. I knew every bar chart. I knew every number. I wasn't going to get called out on my numbers. I wasn't going to have them do that. Right. So we're sitting around at this dinner and, I got partners there. We stand up to present, and literally maybe 3 or 4 minutes into the presentation, after all the prep, he does like one of these, and almost like a Simon Cowell moment. It was like, just basically stop. 5 minutes in. And I remember my heart sank and I was like, well, it took us all of 5 minutes to mess this one up. Maybe he's already got something in, this world of taxes. And then he said, hey, I'm in, let's do this thing. And it was like that elation, like, did he just say what I thought he said? And you look over, like, I think he just said that he's in. Is like this celebration, but we're trying to keep it cool, so it's like, oh, great, now let's talk, you know what I mean? But it was this incredible moment where we now had an alignment with an amazing brand that has millions of followers, and 10 million people watch the show a week. And so imagine putting a brand like that on your marketing for Tax Hive, and what would that do? And of course, it's been an incredible relationship. He's very active. We talk to Kevin on a regular basis. If you look up our social media marketing, you'll see Kevin and the videos that he's shot. And it's really what was a big game changer for us in our business.
So tell us a little bit more about the business and what is the service. It sounds like it has to do a lot with entrepreneurs. I mean, the people that we're talking to, the people are in this with this podcast. So it's probably of value to them.
Yeah, 100%. So there's 3 areas that we service. Number one, we do tax filing and prep. We have an amazing team here of people that do the tax filing and prep. We do bookkeeping, so a lot of entrepreneurs might want to hire a bookkeeper full-time, might be $1,000 a week. Just go fractional, especially go fractional. That's what we offer. We do bookkeeping services. And then the third is where we make the biggest impact, and that's doing tax planning. So I'll give you an example. I had a friend come in 3 weeks ago. He just had to write out a check for $1.2 million that he wasn't expecting in his business to taxes. And his personal income that he took from the business was only $250,000. And he had to write out a very painful check. So I said, hey, Scott, show me the stack of deductions you have, because the whole code is written for business owners. It's the fabric of America. The code is actually your friend as a business owner. A lot of people think, oh, the IRS is, no, it's all your friend. It's designed to bring in GDP for America. So that's the fabric of America. So you could take up to 1,400 deductions as a business owner, but most business owners don't. So I said, hey, show me the stack of deductions you have. And it's like this big versus a stack that should be in his business this big if he just did some simple planning. And so we're helping someone like Scott next year. Now, while the game's going on, we put things in place that will save tens of thousands for him and potentially hundreds of thousands for him. So that's really the biggest problem we want to save business owners in, is doing some proactive kind of work. So when tax comes around, you're just like, it's not the headache time. You know, you've done your work and you're prepared.
So you're saying someone would get an appointment with your team and kind of go through it, or is there initially some education that they need to understand, or it's all wrapped in one? I kind of clarify that a little bit.
Yeah. So the best way to engage with us is we've built tons of content on taxhive.com. So if you go to taxhive.com, we've put tons of videos. You'll see a lot of videos from Kevin. So even if they don't engage with us at any level, go take some time and educate yourself on the benefits of really doing some, proactive tax prep and work. And then the other thing we've built on there is we have a blueprint for business owners. We built a tech platform that right now you can go on and it asks you certain questions about your business, and then it will email you a report and show you right now some areas that you're probably missing in your deductions.
So in your experience, after talking to so many businesses, what is give us a couple nuggets, 1-2 things that people can do throughout the year that they normally miss that will greatly help with the tax burden?
Yeah. So great question. So even just the most simple, you would think, so when you're a W-2 person, you can take up to 10 deductions, and most people take 2 or 3. And then you make a transition into entrepreneurship and no one sits you down and says, okay, actually you can take all these things now. Right. So some of the most basic deductions that we all know, even the entrepreneurs aren't taking those, like your home deductions aren't taken correctly. When they're buying a vehicle, the Section 179, they can buy a vehicle this year that's over 6,000 pounds and get a massive deduction. So choosing the right vehicle, the right way you write off your home-based business or whatever it is, there's so much opportunity. And then in addition, if you're more complex, there's what's called an Augusta rule, for instance. And it was written from Augusta, Georgia. It's where I served a mission in Augusta, Georgia. And that's obviously the Masters. And, it's the most incredible, probably, tournament on the planet Earth. So these people would come in and want to rent their homes out. And a lot of the locals move out of Augusta, Georgia for 2 weeks while this tournament's going on. And they were just getting taxed outrageous. I mean, people are spending thousands a night in these homes to rent. So the Augusta rule is written basically in those 14 days, you can actually take that income during those periods of time and don't have to pay taxes on it. So there's so many little things like that in the tax law, the tax code, that you could take advantage of that people just don't think about.
All right. And were you an expert right away going into it? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they see a problem. They're like, I want to go into this business. I don't even know where to start. Is that how you were with TaxHive, or did you already have enough of a background that you could understand a lot of these things like the Augusta rule and some of the others?
No, so I'm just an entrepreneur, business owner. And so for me, I've just learned a lot working, in a tax firm. And I've had the benefit of having access to this information, basically. But before that, I had the pains. I did the same thing as all the other entrepreneurs do out there, and I put it off, and it's up there with death and taxes, right? And so you kind of put it off and pray for a miracle when it comes to tax time, that you don't get hit too hard. And I never personally took advantage of the code. And it's been an eye-opening experience for me, spending time around, I have a neighbor right here, Gene, who's a CPA. I just love the way he thinks. And getting true experts in your life. Most business owners just try to do it themselves and they get gouged.
Gotcha. So the tax planning throughout the year, is that in conjunction, say, with a will and trust? Do you partner with any attorneys there, outside counsel? How does that work?
Yeah, it's obviously a very important piece of business is making sure your structures are done in the right way. So downstairs, we partner with a law firm downstairs that we can set up entities, trust, wheels, all that kind of stuff. And it's all those things that business owners just, if I ask business owners what they think about on the daily basis, it's generally not taxes and trust and wills. It's like my employee cost, my shipping cost, my operations cost, and out of the back of their mind. So we want to get that stuff that's in the back of all of our minds as business owners and put it in the front of their mind and just get them thinking outside. Like Kevin O'Leary spends time with his lawyers and his tax professionals every 14 days, all year long. It's that big of a priority to him. So that's why if you watch his content, he's like encouraging business owners, hey, just think a little bit different. And that's what we're trying to get. That's what we're trying to get across.
One of our mantras and part of our outro is that mastering your millions all has to do with your mind and your team. Make sure they're the best. So we've talked a lot about mindset. It sounds like to me that you have a team around you. Tell us a little bit about some of the key players of your team and why you felt like it was necessary to hire that person or bring that person on at a certain time.
Yeah. There's a great book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How.
Yes,
and
great one. I recommend that.
I love that book. Obviously, the book talks about, as entrepreneurs, we ask ourselves the wrong question, which is, how do we do this? And I've fallen prey to that in my career many times is, how do I do this? I want to do this. And then you find out that you can't be everything to everyone. And you have a dartboard and your center bullseye is your unique ability. And you should lean into that piece and get good people around you who are the who's. We have a COO who here is one of the best operators on the planet Earth. I mean, he talks a language that you'd probably understand in all the CRMs and the tracking and scaling and everything else. We have a CEO here who is a phenomenal relationship builder, everything else. So you get these, it's a good to great, right? You get the right people on the bus first, and then you'll end up excelling in your business. I'm a huge believer in recruiting the right people, putting the right people in place.
I think I remember reading somewhere something where you had said or written about that the best way to build your business was to build relationships. Mm-hmm. So you're living that, sounds like, within your own business, so also you're teaching people. I love it when that's the case, that people are actually doing what they're teaching.
Yes.
That's not always the case.
100%. Yeah, and I also believe that there's, I talk to people and I always ask them how they're marketing their business, and the vast majority of the people I talk to aren't spending money in the market in marketing. They're just doing word of mouth, right? Word of mouth and referral-based business. And so I think there's a great opportunity for business owners in that front to build a bigger network. I'm a huge believer that if you want to increase your net worth, you build a bigger network, right? It's an age-old thing. And so I think I've just seen business scale in relationships with word of mouth and referral base by really reaching out and building a network.
So what's one of your secrets? To share with us a couple of nuggets, like Scott says, of most people when they get in a situation, they want to network. I mean, that's kind of creepy, all you want is something from me, man. You don't want to be my friend, right? So tell us some things, some of your secrets or what you teach people.
Yeah, so I think there's 3 major things you can do. Number 1 is most people are like, hey, who do I need to talk to? And the place to start is with your phone. I mean, if I were to look at your phones, you probably have in the thousands of contacts in that phone of people you've actually already met. And we're possibly planting the seeds with people, but not the greatest of doing a follow-up and making sure that we cultivate the relationship. And doing 5 texts a day. I did it old school style to start. I put it in a spreadsheet and identified 400 people that I felt like I could align with and do business with. 400 people. And then I just went down like you need to eat an elephant. And I did 20 texts a day to them just to start up the relationship and warm that relationship up again. And I invite anyone watching this is start with 5. Start with 5 a day, and you'll be amazed. And the first reach out is, hey, I wanted to see how you're doing. It's been a while since we've chatted. And just seek to understand, and start building, cultivating that current relationship that you've already engaged with. That's first and foremost to me every time. Second, live events. I actually met you at James Dixon's house there, and I think I've met you also at an event here. I love live events, love, and it's a pain and it's a hassle, and there's about 1,000 other things that you could be doing. And as an entrepreneur, like, I got to do that. But if you just carve out time and you manage your schedule to say, hey, I have 3 events I can go to in the next 30 days that could make an impact on my business and my network. So going to live events, and then at the live event, you do what most entrepreneurs aren't willing to do, and you set times that make sense. You're not going to go try to set up an appointment with everyone. Certain businesses don't align, but the ones that you identify in that live event that align with you and you can do business with, set up an appointment with them and do a follow-up. Which means, here's how I do it. It's like, hey, Jason, based on what you're saying about your business and what our business does at Tax Hive, I would love to be able to chat with you. I think there's some really good synergies. I'd love to work. How's your schedule look on Tuesday? And then at Tuesday at 2:00, we have an actual appointment following up from the meeting. If you don't do that, and I meet you at the event, and I get home the next day, I'm like, oh, I really like those guys. I should reach out to them. And then you don't reach out to them, you don't text them, and there's no follow-up, and there's nothing that happens after that. I love live events, and I identify 2 to 3 people in that live event that I can align with, and then I do a follow-up, and I think riches are made in that follow-up. So that's number 2. Number 3 is referrals are so powerful. It's like, it's the best compliment someone can give you. Saying, hey, meet my friend Scott. Let's say I've built a relationship with you for years, and I'm willing to refer you in that relationship to someone else because I see an alignment there. That is such a great compliment. And most entrepreneurs kind of mess that up. We get it all the time. We get text referrals from our friends. It's awesome. Treat that like manna from heaven. And then when you get the referral, say, hey, every single referral I get, 100% of the time, I follow up with that person and make sure I have a contact. Some of those don't work and they're not a fit, but I've gotten my best gold from referrals. 100%. Like, so what I do is like, hey, how's your schedule? I'd love to jump on the phone on Tuesday at 2:00. How does your Tuesday afternoon look? I always follow up on that. And I've gotten the best benefits. So those are my top 3 in any interaction, how you can build your network. And what I've witnessed is most entrepreneurs don't do that, and they go to the events and there's really no follow-up.
Seems so simple, yet you're right. That's a lot of people, they simply do not do that. I'm really curious, Shawn, to know a little bit more about your hobby of bikes. I mean, you go into the Tax Hive there in Orem, and I don't know if it's there all the time, but there's a motorcycle there, and I'm stumbling here a little bit. It's kind of a classic motorcycle. I know it's not a Harley, but it was it's
a Triumph.
A Triumph, right? And is that
Triumph
yours?
Bike, yeah. It's my business partner's bike, but our motto here is Triumph. And where that came, that's why we got that bike, is because we believe in triumph. You know, you go through hard, dark times as a business owner, and just to have that mindset that you're going to overcome is our motto and the way we operate our business. And so that's why that bike is sitting literally by our event space here, Triumph.
Wow, I should have connected that. That's really cool. So what is it that got you into bikes? I mean, it's both motorbikes and bicycles, correct?
Yeah. So if you go kind of look up above, I have this crazy kind of apocalyptic looking bike also in here that's got big knobby tires. And I just think, you know, I read this book called The Comfort Crisis, and there's a whole chapter on it. This guy's going through this midlife crisis, and he decides he's going to go literally to the Great White North and go on an expedition. He's never done that before. And so he goes out into the frozen tundra with a guide, and he has a whole chapter on there on the benefits of just being outdoor. And I think we went through this COVID phase for all these entrepreneurs are sitting in front of Zooms all day long. And if you just take even 30 minutes on a day and walk out to a corner and just get air and all the mental benefits of doing a reset. And I'm just a huge believer in it. And I use it also as a networking opportunity where I have groups of people that I bike with. I'm doing a networking biking trip to St. George and coming up in February 1st and 2nd. And I'm getting a group of 15 to 20 people together, and we're going to network and bike. So I love doing things outside of four walls to build relationships. And for me, it's the best mental therapy I can get to be on dirt.
I love it. So any chance that you have ridden the Lodoja?
Jason, you're
I
muted.
haven't done. Yeah. I have some friends that have done Lodoja, and that's a road bike. I don't understand and how that works. And like how someone can be on a saddle that long is, to me, it's a little bit supernatural abilities that someone could be on that saddle for hours and hours and hours. It's just, it's really inspiring to me to see that level.
Yeah, it is. I have a nephew that I think has ridden it now. I think this last year was his 16th year straight.
Oof.
And it's amazing. I mean, the guy, I don't think there's a milligram of fat on his body. He's just ripped.
No.
You know, he's slender, right? But he always comes because it's very difficult to get a hotel up here in Logan when that event happens. And my building right here, this office building, actually is the start. Just that way is the start of Lodoja, right? And all the support vehicles, the security, whatever, they all use my driveway, right, of my building. And so I'm able to bring him down here. Well, I own this place. Bring his bike.
That's so cool.
Just bring him right here to the starting line, so he doesn't have to fiddle around and park way over there and get his bike off a rack or anything like that. It was kind of cool.
So cool.
Anyways, you have done a lot with investing in real estate as well, right?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your experience there.
Yeah, so we're part of developers in real estate, so we have 4 or 5 different projects going on right now in the state, and we absolutely love real estate. And we have a project going on in Salem, Utah is the biggest one we're working on, over 1,000 doors. It's an incredible project that we've been developing for years. And I have a business partner that does a lot of that work, and he's amazing at it. So I'm a huge believer in it. I mean, if you look at real estate does have its highs and lows, as we all know, but it's definitely over time, it goes up and to the right. So I love it.
When in the event you're talking out to people out there, when would you say they needed to start investing in real estate?
Yeah, I'm a big believer. Just get yourself in the game, whatever that looks like. I mean, there's so many benefits also on the tax side of being an owner versus a renter. And just running the numbers for especially newer entrepreneurs, looking at just doing the numbers and making sure they understand the benefits, because a lot of them don't even understand that the write-off is in that interest payment on a mortgage, and you're building credit and appreciation in a property. I mean, there's so many benefits of home ownership in America, right? So I think the earlier the better, that if you can afford it and it makes sense business-wise, to get started. How about you? What's your belief in that?
Well, I grew up and my dad was always telling me, go to school, get a good job, the classic poor dad advice, right? I went all the way, man. I got a PhD. I did a postdoc at Caltech, and I had a professor said, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? And so as I started looking at it, what I recognize is, rich dad is my dad. He was giving me poor dad advice, but he was rich dad. He came home from World War II. He's a veteran of World War II, and essentially went into real estate, started doing stuff. I mean, him and his brother started a logging operation, timber, which of course turned into a lumber yard. And then they were just taking they were harvesting the trees up in central Idaho and milling them down and everything, planing them and everything. And then they started saying, well, let's build houses. We've got the cheapest lumber anywhere, right? We got it at our cost. No one else can compete us on that. And so they would build houses. And as a kid, I remember going around Pocatello and I said, "Did you build that one, Dad?" "Yeah." "Dad, did you build that one?" This is a little guy, right? And this had never hit my head. In fact, I mean, there's a lot of multiplexes around Pocatello to help Dad build. And some of my formative years, I mean, I learned to drive a truck because I need to go get the concrete forms because we were building a mobile home park. We need to move we need more forms. Go get the truck, Jason. And I'd drive it down, and I was like 12 or something with the gears type thing. But that I recognize that, whoa, wait a second. My dad's been in real estate essentially my whole life. And then I look at my older brothers and it's like, man, they've been in real estate too. What am I doing? And so I got into it right away too. And once I kind of came to an awakening. How about you, Scott? When do you think you started in real estate?
I started right as soon as I got home from my mission. I knew I wanted to go into it.
Why?
Just because that's what we've done since we were little. And I looked around, all the senior couples who had time to do stuff, they were all real estate moguls. Every single one of them had served 5, 6, 7. I had one guy who served 12 missions by that point in time and in the temple multiple times. And I was like, okay, I'm sold, because that's what I want to do. And if A equals B, then that's where I'm headed. So I came home and did my best to get into it right away. It took me probably 3 years to get the capital I needed, figuring it out. But then I pulled my little brother in and we bought our first duplex, probably that Grandpa built up in Pocatello.
I love that. Well, that's cool. So also we have often on our podcast, we ask people about the infinite banking concept, which I know you know quite a bit about it. I guess, on a scale from 0 to 5, you probably are 4 or a 5 in that arena. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
I just love, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, especially in the market and everything else. And even in banks, it's been a nutty year last several years. And if you kind of look at the insurance company, like what are the institutions that have made it through the test of time, including wars, including massive recessions and depressions? And it's really the insurance companies. And I think it's such a great option for people right now, especially where they're uncertain, to just have a really consistent, very stable kind of place to park their money. And then the advantage of it, I mean, every time I turn around, I have friends that are in it and do it. And I learned something new on the ability to leverage that asset that you have in the policies to be able to go buy things, and you become the bank. I mean, it's like, who has the biggest buildings in most cities is the banks, right? And for a reason. And I think it's such a great American dream to become the bank in a lot of the things you do versus, giving that interest and those payments to other institutions, right? So I just think it's brilliant. And I think it's very consistent, standing the test of time, and you can leverage it. I mean, it's like when you see all the benefits, you're scratching your head and going, this is so amazing. So I'm a huge fan.
So one of the questions Jason and I always have when it comes to infinite banking concept is in relation to taxes. Have you been able to discover a way that we can write off the premiums as an expense or something like that to the business so we can pump more in rather than after tax? Or is that the only way?
Yeah. So I have some friends that are into infinite banking heavy, and I've had that question come to me multiple times, to that exact same question. And I refer them all over to literally my CPA and just like, hey, you talk to them, because that's high powered stuff. And I love how you're thinking too. You're thinking of the mindset of a proactive, how do we look at this and see what we can do in taxes? And I actually don't know the answer other than I've referred my friends to a really good CPA on it.
The old Henry Ford response. I don't know, but I know someone who does.
Yeah, I know someone who does.
I can connect you to it. That's I love that.
Yeah. Yep.
So, Shawn, open book. What is it that you feel like you'd like to say or you'd like to share with people? It doesn't matter on any subject or anything. It would open it up to you to just take a few minutes and tell us what's in your heart, what you're thinking, mindset, team, family, faith. I don't care.
Yeah. So I think the relationship building is what I've really been focusing on. Like my goal next year is to double my network size. And so I think there's two sides of the network. And I think you guys hit it with your team. So build the relation. I've just seen a massive hole in managing people in businesses, right? And so build relationships in your business. You can scale your business faster if you scale the people in your business, and then scale your network. And on the people side, what I've seen is we're heavy technology people, and we haven't really focused on the individual. I read an article recently. It's a Quantum Workforce magazine that said managers spend less than 6% of their time with their individuals on their team. 6% of their time.
Wow.
50% of their time is generally administrative function. So if you have managers in your business, where do you really want them to spend time? And to me, having one-on-ones with individuals with no technology and sitting down like we did, I don't even know how, Jason, we managed without cell phones at one point, but at one point in our lives, we had no cell phones and it was just face-to-face interaction. And that has slowly been chiseled away, AI, everything else. And that element's gone. And I've talked to a lot of people, like they don't even know their manager or what their manager does. There's no relationship there, and they get email reports and they get texts. But if you can actually just kind of put that stuff aside and say, hey, how do I build relationships with members of my team? I think minute by minute, pound for pound, sitting down with an individual and getting an inventory of what their biggest strengths are, what their biggest opportunities are, coming up with a game plan, helping them make more money, perform better, will give you better pound for pound than anything you can spend your time in doing. The number one reason why people quit is because their manager. 70% of the time someone leaves their business is because of their direct manager or the leader. It's their fault. So I'm a huge believer in building relationships outside of your business and also within your business. Building those relationships. If you help someone go from here to here and you have a relationship and you know their family and you know their son's playing baseball and you ask them about that and you spend an hour with them at least once a month and you help them come up with a plan, they're not going to leave you. And your recruiting is going to be so much better. You're going to have like very low attrition, and you're going to be able to scale your business. That's the greatest way to scale, in my opinion, scaling your salespeople, spending those one-on-one time moments that are so important.
Love that. Well, we've really appreciated you coming on and speaking with us. This has been a lot of fun. Want to ask one kind of final question for you. 5 years down the road, what is the next mountain you're going to climb?
So I'm working on, I just finished a book. It's a rough draft, very rough right now. So it's called The Ignition Point, and is the name of my book. And then I'm doing also a podcast called The Ignition Point with Debbie Hart. Amazing. And I plan on really expanding my personal brand as well over the next 5 years. And I feel like the greatest way we can give back to the future generations is what you're doing right now, is you're planting seeds of entrepreneurship, seeds in minds of people. I think it's the greatest way to make impact. That's what you're doing. And that's where I want to scale that side of it. And in 5 years, I'd love to make a bigger impact into hundreds of thousands of people that see information and it helps make an impact on their life. So that's my big mountain to climb over the next 5 years.
Is there there's a possibility that you could put a metric on that? And what I mean by that, we asked Kelly Cardenas, and he says, I want to speak to an audience of 100,000. I looked him right in the eye. I said, Kelly, when that happens, you call me. I don't care where it is on the planet, what the cost of the ticket. I'm going to be on the stinking front row. Yeah. So a similar thing. Is there some sort of metric? I love what you said. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there some sort of metric and say okay, Shawn, when you hit there, Scott and I are going to be there cheering you on.
I love it. I'm glad you brought up Kelly. He's a good friend of yours and mine. And I just love how he has that vision as well. And he's an incredible human being. And he is the best example. If you get a referral, or if you send a referral to Kelly, watch how he responds. His response is the same. Hey, we're going to be best friends forever. So I love that guy. So I'm glad you brought him up. But in my mind, I have 1 million people that I want to impact. And whatever that looks like for you, for us, I want to hit 1 million people, a million individuals. And primarily I'm a business person and entrepreneur. I'd love to hit 1 million people that I've impacted in some way, either the book, podcast, live events, stages, everything else. So that's really where I'm headed.
Okay. We're looking forward to celebrating with you.
Appreciate that.
Well, thanks again, Shawn. We've really appreciated having you on. And for all our listeners, please know that we will put all contacts with Tax Hive and everything in the show notes down below. And Shawn, you need to let us know when the book comes out, because we'll also put a link to that as well. If you'd like to connect with Jason or I, feel free to hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You name what platform you want, we'll come talk to you. Also, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us out with the algorithms. Last, remember that mastering your millions all starts with your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. Catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.